Okay, here we go again. Driving in the car. I don't know why it is, but I love to drive and talk. It just seems comfortable for me. I don't know why. Maybe because I talk to myself anyway, and it's just normal that I would talk and make a video while I'm driving. But it's so much more comfortable for me than sitting in front of a camera at home in a chair. I don't know. I like it. But anyway, I mentioned in the last video about retirement that I'm going to be retiring at 59 years old. And that's going to be in about 5 months from now. It's February, and I'm going to be retiring in July. And I've worked for the same place for the same industry for 36 years, but I've been at the same exact location for 34 years. And part of me likes to say that it wasn't any of my own doing, but I guess it was. Some of the choices that I made led me to this, and the consistency I had led me to this. The reason I can retire at 59 is because my career has been with the federal government. I have been my whole life involved with the federal government and the military. Now, obviously, not everybody does that. Not everybody can do that. I joined the military at 18 years old, went active duty Air Force. I spent 4 years active duty, and then I got homesick. Thought I was missing something at home, which it turns out I wasn't. But I came home, got out of the Air Force, came home. I spent 4 years at home, realizing that everything was exactly like it was before I left. The guys, my friends at home, were doing the exact same things. But I was trying to find my career. What was I going to do? So I took a couple of local jobs and didn't know what I wanted to do. About 4 years into it, I had the opportunity to go to the local Air Force base with someone who wanted to put in for a job. And while they were doing the paperwork, I was just sitting at a table, browsing through a binder with jobs that were open. And one of them was my career, which was sheet metal work. Made a joke like, "Oh, look, there's a sheet metal job open." And the lady who was hiring said, "Well, why don't you put in for it?" Now, I didn't know if I qualified for this job. I didn't really know if I even wanted the job. So I kind of played it off and said, "Oh, I really don't have my stuff together. I don't know all my details to do the application." And she said, "Well, that's okay. I'll give you an application to take home." So I said, "Okay, I'll take it home." And I really didn't plan on doing it. Well, I guess I did. I ended up doing it. I sent it in. And there had been a hiring freeze at the base. The base was about an hour from my house. There had been a hiring freeze. So a bunch of the people who already worked there were trying to get their friends and relatives into this position. And when the hiring freeze ended, somehow my name got pulled in because I was qualified for the job. And they offered me the job. And, I really didn't know if I could do the job. I didn't know if I should take it. It was an hour away from home. And at the time, I was working 5 minutes from where I lived. And I remember talking to my foreman, who was a really nice guy, and he really liked me. And he said, "Roger, you got to at least try. It's a government job." He said, "Everybody wants to work for the government because it's a good job. It's got benefits. You're not going to break your neck. It's a good, steady job. You can always come back here, and I will always give you your job back. But you got to try it." So I did. I tried it. And I remember the funny thing. At the time, I was making $8.50 an hour. And this job was starting out at $11.62 an hour. And I thought that was so much money. I said, "Oh my gosh, that is so much money. I can't believe I'm going to be making that much money." But it was an hour drive from the house. And I tried it. And it turned out to be a pretty good job. But what was funny was that it was all older guys, because civil service jobs turn out that they're jobs from guys who were, the civil service was created to be jobs for guys and girls who came from the military, who came from a war and came back into society and needed jobs. So they created civil service jobs. So a lot of the guys that I worked with were older. They were from wartime, or they were retired military. And there were a few that never served, but most of them were older than me. I was 25 years old at the time. And the average guy there was 40, 50, 60 years old. And I remember after a while telling my dad I didn't like it, because there was nobody my age. There was nobody to fool around with. There was nobody to have fun with. And my father, who had been a hard worker his whole life, a blue-collar worker, we came from a blue-collar town. And I could go off on a whole tangent with that. But my father worked in a factory his whole life. He quit school at 16 to take care of his mom and dad financially. And he worked in a factory his whole life. He said, Roger, work isn't supposed to be fun. It's supposed to be work. You're not supposed to like it. If it was fun, they'd call it fun. They wouldn't call it work. They'd say, see you later, hon, I'm going to fun today. I'll be back after I'm done with fun. But they don't. They call it work. See you later, hon, I'm going to work today, right? Well, you don't hear that nowadays. It is kind of funny because everybody says you've got to love your job nowadays. And especially, some of the older folks say it, and the younger kids, they just quit their jobs if they don't like them. You've got to love what you do. That's only a new concept. You never had to love what you did in the past. You had to survive so you could eat. But we're in a different time now where people are very, very spoiled. However, he taught me that it was a good job. You weren't supposed to have fun. You were supposed to earn a living. So I ended up staying there. And to make a long story short, here we are 36 years later, 34 years at this base. And here I am still there. So I wasn't thinking about retirement when I was 25 years old. I wasn't planning, I'm going to retire and this is the job and I'm going to put money away and I'm going to have my ducks in a line. I was the average 25-year-old that couldn't save money, and that was the least thing in my mind. We had a retirement plan where they would match the first 5% of the money we put in, and I wasn't putting anything in there because I had the typical thing that kids my age would say, I can't afford to put money in there. And it just so happened, because of the fact that I was loyal to that job and I stayed there for all those years, that's what put me in line for where I am now. I've been at the job for over 30 years. What happened was, a year after I was there as a civilian, working as a civilian, I ended up joining the National Guard with the exact same job there. And the reason I joined the National Guard was because I wanted to go to college and take some classes. And if I signed up for 6 years, it was the Air Force National Guard. If I signed up for 6 years, they would pay for the college at the local community college. So I signed up for 6 years, and now I'm taking some college classes. And actually, never looked back after that. That 6 years went by so fast, and all of a sudden I had 10 years in the Air Force. 6 years Air National Guard and 4 years active duty. And the time went by so fast that before you know it, I had my 20 years. So I was working full-time as a civilian, and I was in the National Guard, so I was earning a military retirement, and I was earning a federal retirement. And it's funny, some people say, you shouldn't be able to get both. I had a friend, an older man who was a good friend of mine. I ended up working with him on the civilian side for several years, and he's retired now, and he was a great, great gentleman. And he was retired Air Force, 28 years in the Air Force, and he came to work at the base as a maintenance man on the civilian side. And some of the younger guys who had never served in the Air Force or any military used to, get frustrated with him, and they'd say, that's not fair. You shouldn't be able to work in the federal government and work towards a pension. You've already got an Air Force pension. And he would say, well, you could get an Air Force pension too. The Air Force is hiring. And they would always say the same thing. I can't do that. I can't take orders from anybody. I can't join the military. And he would say, well, guess what? I did. I did join the military, and I spent 28 years traveling the globe, moving my family every time I needed to earn that. So don't complain about something I earned, because you could earn it too if you wanted, but you choose not to. Anyway, there's a little tangent there. So what I'm getting at is I made some choices in life, some of them not on purpose. I just made choices that led to this. I didn't have the whole big picture in mind at the time. I didn't say, oh, this is going to earn me retirements and I'm going to be able to retire early and I'm going to have money saved. I just was loyal to my positions. And over the time, I eventually went full-time military, and I went back and forth. I deployed to Iraq several times, and many things happened in my career. And right now, the last 6 years, I've been full-time military. I officially retired from my federal job a few years ago, and I'm getting ready to retire from the military in July. So I'll be collecting a federal retirement check, and I'll be collecting a military retirement check. And the government has had me, the military's had me for 36 years now total. And it's done some wear and tear to my body. I've got some issues, some service-related disabilities that I will also be collecting from the VA. So I'm going to be in a good position. You only need 20 years to retire from the military. I've got 36 years. I've opted to stay much later. A lot of guys do 20 and they're done with it. I put up with an awful lot to stay 36 years. And that's why I'm where I am. So at 59 years old, I'm going to be able to retire. I'm not going to collect Social Security till I'm 62. I think I could possibly get a Social Security kicker because of the fact that I'm in the military and I'm losing my job technically, but I'm not even going to look at that. I'm going to be comfortable where I am until 62. I am retiring as early as I possibly can, militarily wise, at full benefit from the military. From the National Guard, when you retire from the Air National Guard, you can't collect until you're 60. I'm going to be 59. I have an early retirement because I deployed twice, so I can collect it just a little over 59, and that's what I'm going to do. I'm not staying any further than that. I have been offered to stay a little longer, but I've chosen not to because I'm just done. I'm burnt out and I'm done. So that's why I can retire at 59. That's where I am right now. Am I going to be completely retired? No, because I can't keep still. I'm not the type of person that's going to retire and sit in front of the TV all day. I have to do something. I have to always do something. I've never had just one job in my life. I've always been at a full-time job. I've always been in the National Guard. I've always had another job. You know, I've done roofing. I worked doing maintenance and janitorial work at a nursing home. I worked in a pizza place, several pizza places. You know, I've done many different things. I did rain gutter work on the outside. I flip appliances. I do lots of different things. And I have a couple of ideas for little businesses on the side when I retire. But I am going to enjoy my time with grandkids and family and get to do some things I haven't done in a while, haven't been able to do. I am going to enjoy the time to do things at my pace and not somebody else's pace. So I think I'll stop this video shortly here and just leave it at that, explaining why I could retire. Now, obviously not everybody can do this, but you've got to look at your situation. There'll obviously be some differences financially. Everybody's going to look at their situation and see what it takes to get there. If you're older, your options might be a little more limited. If you're young, you got to think about these things. My son, I talk to him all the time. He's my age when I got this job, and he's not too concerned about retiring right now. And I tell him things that I didn't understand at that time that nobody taught me. I teach him about investing. I teach him about getting a job that's going to match your retirement contributions. I teach him about, maybe working for himself or maximizing his savings and doing things that are going to count in the long run. And I don't know how much of that he listens to, because he just listens and doesn't say anything. Okay? So that's where I am. Maybe that shed a little light. Maybe that made sense to someone. Maybe someone else is in my boat. That's where I am and why I'm retiring at this age. We'll see what I talk about in the next video. Maybe I'll carry on a little further. But until then, happy retirement planning or happy retirement.